On September 18th, November 218 Victor Bravo, a Cirrus SR22 turbo, crashed around 3 p.m. Eastern near Franklin, North Carolina, fatally injuring all three occupants. From ADSB tracking, we can see that 8 Victor Bravo is en route from Nashville to Macon County Airport. Let's bring in Mark Waddell now, Dean of Aviation Safety, with the details. Mark?
Thank you, Chuck. I'm going to be talking about what we've learned so far concerning a fatal accident in Cirrus SR22T, November 218 Victor Bravo, that occurred at Macon County Airport in Franklin, North Carolina on September 18, 2025. Before I continue, I want to express our deepest condolences to all family, friends, and colleagues of the pilot and his passengers who died in this accident. The accident made local and national news. There's been some speculation so far about what might have happened, but today I'm only going to talk about the facts that we've been able to learn so far and confirm, and also the status of the ongoing FAA and NTSB investigations. Pilot Brett James Cornelius was an acclaimed singer, songwriter, and music producer who resided near Nashville, Tennessee. He was 57 years old. He held a private pilot certificate with an instrument rating in single-engine land. He's also been a member of the Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association since 2015, and it appears he flew often. He reported last year that he had over 2,000 hours of flight time. The crash site was off the left side of runway 7 at Macon County Airport. There was no fire, and a small debris field would suggest a near vertical impact, but again, that needs to be confirmed. The FAA and the NTSB, as well as party representatives, were examining the wreckage on September 19th, 2025. They haven't released any information yet, but we expect that'll be forthcoming soon. Status of accident reports. The FAA released a preliminary notice on September 19, 2025. They confirmed the 3 fatalities, that this was a personal flight under Part 91. Preliminary assessment was it happened during the approach phase and that the aircraft crashed under unknown circumstances. The NTSB was on site on September 19th and began collecting evidence. We expect a preliminary report will be issued in 2 to 3 weeks. So flight track data is available for the aircraft. Here I've uploaded it to an app we use for accident reconstructions called FlyStow. And I'll just play this. You can see the aircraft departed Nashville, Tennessee. And if we fast forward near the end of the flight, when the aircraft started descending for landing, you'll note that it flew a series of circles. This is because Macon County Airport is in a valley kind of nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And so there's terrain all around the airport, and the pilots need to descend carefully to get down to pattern altitude in order to land. One of the interesting factors about this data is the pilot did not land on his first pass. He actually did a runway flyby from what appears from the data. Then he enters a left-hand pattern and comes around again to land on runway 7. Now, what we don't know is whether the pilot was communicating with anyone at the time, whether the aircraft was any kind of distress. There's no indication of that so far in news reports. The other aspect of this that's a little bit confusing at this point is the pilot, as I said, was landing on runway 7. However, because of the terrain around the airport and the slope of the runway, it's actually preferred to land on runway 25 in the opposite direction. So we don't know yet if that's a factor in the accident, but it's something worth mentioning. The aircraft was a 2016 SR22 Turbo, Generation 5, The pilot's operating handbook for this aircraft specifies that normal landings are with full flaps at approach speeds in a range of 80 to 85 knots. There's a VREF speed, which is for short field approaches, which is 79 knots at max gross weight, and airspeed should be decreased for lower landing weights. This is important because as we look at the ADSB data, we'll see that this pilot was flying the aircraft substantially faster than these speeds for his approach. So this ADSB data came out of FlightAware. The data points are 16 seconds apart for the first three, and then 18 seconds between the third and the fourth data point. So we don't have really good fidelity here, but what we can tell from the data is that the pilot flew apparently a steep and fast final approach. The first data point is crossing about 500 AGL, and his sink rate here is 1,375 feet per minute. And the approach speed was approximately 113 knots, where it should have been closer to 80 knots. So this aircraft at this point was at least 20 to maybe 25 knots too fast. The second data point is crossing near 50-foot AGL. Here it slowed somewhat, but it's still doing over 100 knots, which is, again, way too fast, and the sink rate's 844 feet per minute. So it has the appearance of diving for the runway instead of flying a nice stable approach to the runway. The last two data points there are in a climb, so it appears that the pilot has entered a low-speed go-around, and also the last data point shows the aircraft drifting left of the runway, which is characteristic of what we see in loss of control accidents during go-arounds. The other interesting point is that at this last recorded data point, the airspeed slowed significantly to 72 knots, suggesting that the aircraft could have been near stall at this point. FlyStow, as I mentioned, does reconstructions from ADSB data. And what we see here is that the descent path from 500 AGL to 50 foot was approximately 9 degrees, whereas a normal descent path would be 3 degrees. So this is a very, very steep descent. It started also very close to the runway, about a half a mile from the runway. Normally, if we were flying a 3-degree approach, we'd be crossing 500 AGL a mile and a half from the runway. So this was very steep. The other thing that jumped out of the data was the descent rate was up in the caution zone above 1,000 feet per minute as the aircraft was on short final below 500-foot AGL. Again, this is a concerning factor in this accident. So potential factors that we can talk about so far are the terrain surrounding the airport, the fact that the preferred landing runway is 25, whereas the pilot elected to land on runway 7, which would have involved a downhill landing, what appears to be a steep and unstable final approach, and the apparent low speed that was recorded during the go-around and the left turn, which may indicate a go-around loss of control. Now, the NTSB investigators and the rest of the team who were on site beginning September 19th are going to look for more clues, and what they find may reveal important clues regarding condition of the engine and other mechanical systems prior to the crash, as well as the flaps position. The reason we're interested in flaps position is we've seen premature flaps retraction as a common error in fatal go-around accidents. This causes the aircraft stall speed to increase, and if pilots are beginning these go-arounds from low airspeed and they raise flaps too soon, they can actually induce stall of the wing and loss of control. Over the past 5 years, as we've been studying all accidents and incidents in our Cirrus fleet, more than half occur in the landing and go-around phase, and 8 of those were fatals. Now, we know even though this pilot had high time, We recommend that pilots take recurrent training at least every 6 months because skills can fade, and particularly these go-around skills that are needed for recovering from unstable approaches are skills that are very difficult to maintain if you're not practicing them a lot. And for this reason, we recommend that pilots go around sooner. If they find themselves in an unstable approach, they really need to go around before they get too slow and are dealing with the kind of conditions this pilot may have experienced here. So Chuck, that's what we've learned so far, and we'll update this once more is released by the NTSB investigators.
Thanks, Mark. Of course, it's too soon to say what happened, but we've seen this accident profile before. An unstable approach to a go-around. So far, so good. However, from the recorded data, the airplane continued to slow to 72 knots as vertical speed increased, which brings into question what the power setting might have been. At 72 knots, depending on weight, if the pilot raises the flaps to 0 without a commensurate reduction in angle of attack, the wing can stall. What the power setting was will come out. This airplane is equipped with a hardened recoverable data module recording many parameters, including power. Pictures of the crash site indicate a vertical impact with the ground, suggesting a stall. We'll follow up just as soon as the NTSB publishes its preliminary report. If you're interested in joining the Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association or learning more about Cirrus Direct Training, we have put links in the show notes. I'm Chuck Calley, and this has been First Takes.